Good morning on this very cold again Tuesday. We had a cold day yesterday on Monday. We brought it back again for you Tuesday. 15 degrees outside right now. I'm looking out at what looks to be an absolutely beautiful day, except for the temperatures right now. But nonetheless, it's going to be a great day, and we obviously are going to be looking forward to what the trading day looks like and as earnings season continues to kick off. Now, yesterday, things did not look all that great in the pre-market, and they only got worse as we got into the day. As a matter of fact, we really started to get pounded throughout the session. On the very absolute lows, we had the Dow down over 900 points yesterday. We had the NASDAQ obviously under some serious pressure as well, but we did close a little bit better, some improvements by the end of the day, and maybe some of that having to do with what we'd heard from Pelosi and the potential for what's going on there. But obviously, the coronavirus definitely the focal point at this point in time, as people are looking right at some of those numbers and what's going on in Europe and what's going on in the rest of the world, as well as the United States, of course. So the Dow finished down about 650 points yesterday. Huge hit to the downside. NASDAQ down about 190 points yesterday. That's a massive move as well. The S&P down about 64. All off the lows, but those lows were brutal. As a matter of fact, NASDAQ was off about 300 points. As I mentioned, the Dow down more than 900 points on the lows. So we did get that little bit of a late rally to get off of those lows and cut into some of that. But really a harsh day yesterday. Matter of fact, you look over the volatility index, not surprisingly, huge jump to the upside, about 18% to the upside, well over that 30 mark. As a matter of fact, 32.5 is about where we went out last night. We were looking at levels that were levels we hadn't seen in quite a long time, quite honestly. When we get up and we'd push up towards 30, broke down immediately in the past when we've gotten there. Yesterday, based upon what we were seeing in the markets, makes a lot of sense at that highs of the day. We had some pretty good spikes. Matter of fact, the spike that we got, even with the market down 900, we didn't get that far off of that spike. And like I say, still finishing right around that 32.5 level. The surprising part about yesterday, if there was anything surprising other than just the pounding the markets were taking, was the volume. Now, on a day like that, I would have expected, given what we've seen in 2020, I would have expected a market where maybe we traded somewhere between 33 and 35 million contracts. That's not the case. We only traded about 28.5 million contracts yesterday. So we were kind of in line in terms of volumes, despite the fact that we had that big spike in volatility and that big pressure move to the downside. Now, what were some of the leaders yesterday? Well, Apple, once again, as always, leading. It was about a little over 1 million contracts yesterday. Normally, Apple trades closer to 2 million. So you can see right there, that was a little bit on the unusual side. Tesla, about 560,000. Snap, about 547,000. AMD, rounding up the top four with about 450,000. So numbers were high, but numbers weren't extremely high, and would have expected much higher numbers than that. By the end of the day, it was really interesting. You look over at the Dow and you see those 30 stocks. You expect maybe on a day like that, oh, well, all 30 stocks are going to be in the red. Well, that's pretty close to true. Apple, on the other hand, actually was the one standout, and that was in the green by a fraction. I mean, it was unbelievable, but closed right around 115. Obviously, big tech week for earnings. We've been talking about that as well. What was really getting pounded yesterday? A lot of these industrials, Honeywell, Caterpillar, Boeing, all down more than 3% yesterday. And you look over at the industrials itself, the XLI, that was down about 2.5%. But materials down 2.5%, consumer staples down about 2%, Target, Home Depot, Best Buy, Lowe's, those names all getting pounded pretty good yesterday. The financials down about 2.25%. We had, as we talked about, got up back over that 25 level in terms of the XLF, only to see it go right back down once again. JP Morgan and Capital One definitely contributing to that move to the downside. Capital One definitely getting hit the hardest. NASDAQ, you had Zoom, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, they all finished in the green, but there was pressure everywhere else. As a matter of fact, you take a look over at tech, that was down about 2% yesterday. The chips were down a little bit more than 2% as well yesterday. And these concerns certainly were about the coronavirus, certainly did take center stage. And that was what was leading the markets in terms of that big push to the downside. What are going to be some of the results of if we see these numbers continuing to climb? And that's what I think certainly has markets definitely questioning things and under some serious concerns about what is next. And obviously that's something that we're going to be getting through as we get through the not only that, but earnings and the stimulus, obviously, all of those factors. And the Pelosi yesterday, by the way, just to follow up on that, talked about the stimulus, that maybe we would get something before the election. Well, that's 1 week, so it's going to have to happen pretty soon if that's going to happen at all. Markets were a little bit more calm this morning, however, and that definitely was something that stood out a little bit. You expected to see a big snapback. We did in the pre-market very early on. Yeah, the markets were up actually pretty nicely on the Dow, looking like it was up about 100 points steadily. We started to see that slip. As a matter of fact, right now I'm looking, just to give you an up-to-date 30 minutes into the day, I'm showing the Dow right now about 30 points to the downside. NASDAQ holding on. NASDAQ still holding on, up about 54 points right now. So that's something that it's been up about 50 in the pre-market. Here we are in the early market, up about 50 and holding on to that about 30 minutes into the day. Industrials, once again, pressure is on. And we talked about yesterday, pressure was on. Well, 3M, Boeing, Caterpillar, add a little bit of Honeywell and Dow, and you get the idea. We got a nice little bit of pressure coming from the industrial side. Now, on the NASDAQ, you look over at the semiconductors, certain areas of the semis are looking okay. We got Xilinx definitely looking more than okay, looking pretty strong this morning. NVIDIA as well. Add in some Zoom, some Autodesk, Monster Beverage, that company doing very well, Hasbro. So we've got some names that are definitely moving to the upside when you look over at the NASDAQ right now. But tech in general, little bit to more on the flatter side. We're seeing some positives, but not a huge move. But we've got Amazon, Tesla. We got, matter of fact, Salesforce actually did look pretty strong early on. Microsoft in the positive, so that's something. A lot of influence right now early on. We talk about earnings. This is a big earnings week, and it's not just about technology. We've got Merck, we've got Pfizer. Merck, one of those names that started to move a little bit into the positive territory this morning after sitting down there a little bit in the red, at least right out of the gate. Volatility index, we are still trading right around that 32 level, right around 32 and a half. So an interesting start to the day. Now, we've got some interesting, unusual option activity coming at you as well, but I've got to tell you something. These guys, I love the Waffle House. Anybody who follows me on Twitter knows how much I do love the Waffle House and think it's just absolutely the greatest. And I talk about it all the time and all the different options that they have. And it's just a fun place to be. And I love the community there. So I appreciate this. Thanks a lot, Walt, and the gang over at Waffle House for sending that over to me. It's awesome. Really excited about that. So that's going to be something that I'm sure a lot of people will be talking about. The other thing they're going to be talking about, we have the halftime report later on coming up today. I'll be sitting on that. Hopefully get you some unusual there as well. And we've got the 5 o'clock show as well. So it's going to be a double for me today. It's going to be a pretty interesting day with cold days outside. Might as well be inside and checking out the markets and keeping an eye on everything that's going on right now. Certainly we're going to be doing that. Keep an eye on this volume. Are we going to continue to see a volume that's a little bit strange given the kind of movements that we've been getting in the market over the last couple of sessions, specifically yesterday though? And that market still 28.5 million. It's not so bad, but it's not what would be expected. And so we talk about unusual all the time. We had plenty of unusual option activity yesterday. I'm going to give you some unusual right now. So the unusual that we've got today then would be something that really is incredibly unusual. How about Norwegian Cruise Lines? Now, this is a name, given the backdrop of yesterday and all the pressure that was on the markets yesterday, down over 900 points, finishing down 650 points. But why was that? Well, it was primarily focused on the coronavirus, what's going on globally as well as here in the United States. So Norwegian Cruise Line, they've got earnings coming out on the 5th. Well, they're buying the November 6th expiring 21 strike calls. Stocks trading just beneath 17. They're buying the 21 strike calls, trading for about 25 cents, 4,200 of those calls being bought. So talk about unusual option activity. It's kind of, you kind of step back and say, why? What would cause that to happen? What would make that stock move to the upside? Somebody out there is buying these options. So that's a pretty interesting trade. Gives you a very short term, obviously November 6th, so that we're just barely going out in time, but it does include those earnings that come out on the 5th. So something to keep an eye on. Definitely unusual option activity there. I'm going to have 2 more when it gets to the halftime report today. So I look forward to seeing you then. Folks, have a great day of trading.